So welcome everyone to one of the series of our Mini Talk Money Week podcast. I'm joined today by Wendy. So Wendy is from our sales team. Wendy has got two wonderful children, and we are going to be talking all things money and sort of the world of family. So Wendy, do you want to tell us a little bit about your little family?
Of course, thanks Gabs. As Gabs said, I'm Wendy and I work in the nudge sales team. I've got two children, two boys who are currently 8 and 5, and as those people with kids know, they're expensive. But also what's really important, I think, is how to teach them about money. So I guess that's what we're going to talk about today.
Exactly, yeah. So obviously some people think the world of money can be a little bit boring sometimes, but we know, at Nudge, we want to keep it always fun for the people that we engage with. So how do you sort of do that with your kids then? How do you make learning about this world of money, much more fun and accessible?
I think, so the way we're doing it with the kids, they're both really into football because they're boys. So we kind of always relate it back to that, sort of introducing the concepts of money, but making it fun by relating it back to something that they're interested in. Mm-hmm. So like I say, for them, it's football. So we've talked about football transfers, and when they were really small, we started learning about maths and numbers by like the numbers on the back of shirts and things.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so I always remember my oldest son in reception at school could count to like 55 because he's a Man United fan like his dad, and they had he could recite the whole squad. He had a trouble with 13 and 15 though, because Man United didn't have a number 13 and number 15 at the time, so he didn't know they existed. But yeah, we make it fun, I think, or we try and make it fun. I'm sure if you spoke to them, they'd tell you it wasn't that fun, but we try and make it fun by relating it back to something that they're interested in, mm-hmm. because that's a way of getting them interested in it as well.
Yeah, making a little connection then. So when did they start to learn about money? How old are they both now?
So they're 5 and 8. We've always talked about it to an extent, like ever since they were tiny, because we never wanted it to be a taboo topic with them. Mm-hmm. Because I think if you make it a taboo topic and you don't want to talk about it, then it makes it seem more scary and I don't know. So we don't necessarily talk about in detail at the moment, like how much I earn versus how much the mortgage costs. But we've talked about it from a young age about, things cost money. Mm-hmm. Mummy and daddy go to work so that, we can have pennies to pay for things, and then kind of taking it from there. So then they also have shown an interest in it. Okay, what costs pennies? What do we have to pay for? And that kind of thing. And then we've talked about it, when we're doing the shopping and that kind of thing, like if they want something extra, Tesco sell everything these days. Oh, we want this toy. Well, that costs money. Mm-hmm. Like, if you have this, you can't have that kind of thing.
I think that's a good way of splitting it up in between. Like I always say to people on Masterclass, so you don't have to tell them, the ins and outs of your financial situation, but just helping them understand this is what we have to spend, this is what we've got to save, and help to split it up that way. Do you think that they understand the sort of digital world that we live in? So do they make the connection between, cards and apps and phones being used for purchases with like a real physical thing?
I think it's really difficult. So they do get pocket money now. We started giving them pocket money last year in lockdown. But we give them cash at the moment because I think we did a little bit of research into it and what the best thing to do was. And I know lots of people like the cards that you can get for kids and that sort of thing. And I think we're going to move on to that. But in the first instance, I wanted them to get an understanding of the kind of physical nature of spending money. So like they have their, if they save up their pocket money and they have their £10 and they go to the shop and they spend whatever it might be, £7 and they get their change, that they have that physical sensation of losing or mm-hmm. exchanging that money for something else, and they don't have as much then. But yeah, I want to move, particularly with the 8-year-old, I want to move on to this the concept of those cards and the the digital nature of it, because I think it's important that they understand. Like I know I do it sometimes, like now I've put my my card on my phone and I can use Apple Pay or Android Pay or whatever, and you just spend it, and then suddenly you realize that you've spent like 50 or 60 pounds on just little transactions, and you're like, I don't even what have I spent that on? Like, how have I done that? Where's it gone? And it's because it almost doesn't feel like spending money. So I wanted them to get the understanding of having the money and spending the money first before we move on to the digital side of things. So they know that they can spend money on a card, because obviously we do that all the time, but they don't have the cards yet. I think I wanted to wait till they were a little bit older till I did that.
Even now, I still draw cash out every week to help me stick to my weekly budget, and I have X amount in like our joint account to spend for anything that might be online, and then I physically draw the cash out, because I'm the same as you. Sometimes we'll get to the end of the week and I'm like, what have we really spent this week's like allowance on? Whereas that we haven't really done anything with it. It's just gone in, you know, wherever we spend money. So do you talk to them then about sort of future scenarios about, you know, renting or mortgages, or do you think that is something that will come a little bit later down the line as they get a little bit older and understand this world of money a little bit more?
We do talk about it. We haven't talked about necessarily the difference between renting and buying a house or anything like that yet. So they understand that, you know, the older one understands the concept of a mortgage at a high level, so that you borrow money from the bank to buy a house and pay it back over a period of time. And he knows that, you know, like that's what we do that, and that's how we bought our house. We've talked to him about the importance of saving for the future. So that kind of, you know, you want to save up money, because if you spend all your pocket money now and then you want something next week, then, you know,
you've not got it.
Not got it. And actually, but because we were talking about to them about the fact that we were doing this podcast, and I said to them, how do we make money fun, and how do we talk about money? What do you know about money? And they said to me, both of them, oh, we know that you can spend your money in 3 ways. You can spend it once, you can spend it more than once, or you can spend it less than once. Yeah. And then I made them explain it to me, and we got into this discussion about saving and stuff. But it's a really interesting concept of, if you spend your money as soon as you get it, you spend it once. If you can save it and you get some interest on it, then you can spend it more than once. Because if you know, have got, it's really, really unlikely in these times, but if you've got a 10% interest account and you have £100 saved in there for a year, and you end the year with £110, suddenly you can buy something a little bit more. Yeah. But if you spend it before you've got it, and you have to borrow money to get it, and you have to pay interest on that, then when you do get your money, you're not spending it once, you're spending it less than once, because you're having to pay interest. So they understand the kind of, at a really high level, those concepts, because we've really simplified it. But it's, some of them are difficult concepts for kids to grasp,
especially from a young age.
Yeah, and we've talked to them about things like compound interest, but obviously never call it that, because that feels complicated. But if you've got money and you have it in a savings account, and at the end of the year you get interest on it, then next year you're getting interest on the higher amount, and they're like, oh yeah, that's a really good idea.
I think it just teaches them good money habits, doesn't it? That to watch it grow a little bit more. And if you keep your money in the bank, you know, you will get some interest on it. Like we were saying, don't know how much interest at the minute. So my next question was going to be, do you think they've inherited your good money habits? Which, by the sounds of things, I would say yes. You can at least be putting them in good habits if they learn them or not.
They've inherited my husband's good money habits. I have not inherited good money habits from growing up. So I have to work really hard to be good with money, and I joke with all my customers and anybody that, like, if I could earn like what Cristiano Ronaldo earns or Lionel Messi earns, I could earn like a footballer's wage, Neymar, whatever, and I would still, if left to my own devices, have spent it a week before. So I have to work really hard to be sensible with money. But yeah, the kids, certainly the older one, seems to have inherited his dad's good money habits. The younger one is a bit more frivolous and a bit more gung-ho, but is getting there with saving, which is really nice.
I think even for me, like as a young person, I was same as you, just quite bad with money. But then that's made me sort of learn the hard way, and as an adult be like, okay, right. And then even to nieces and nephews, I'm like, this is what you need to be doing with your pocket money, because my nephew is terrible for just getting the £10 off his granddad and that's it. He's down there. And I was like, do you know, if you saved up half of that, think you could buy yourself a car in the next 7 years, like he's just been 10. It's like, if you put half of that away, think how much money you'd have when you were 17. And all of a sudden he was like, it was that connection between saving and that end goal, and he was like, oh yeah. And then now he started to just put a little bit away, and we were like, see. So yeah, with that, like saving and spending, and then sort of needs versus wants, do you sort of teach them needs versus wants? I was talking to Steve about this actually, about kind of applying the 50-30-20 rule to kids' pocket money, but putting it in as a little bit like, right, your current needs are your PlayStation subscription or your football subscriptions or whatever it is. Do they kind of get this concept of some stuff you've just got to pay for, and then the other stuff, yes, is kind of like what you want to spend money on?
Yeah, we don't make them spend their pocket money in that way. So, and we don't break it down like that. But we agreed with them, I guess, beforehand when we talked about pocket money and the amount of pocket money that they get, like we would still cover the things that they need. So we talked about the fact that, so they both play football on Saturday morning and they quite often go to the clubhouse afterwards and like, can we get some sweets? And we said, like, we'll still buy sweets that you have in the house and things, you know, the things that you want to take to school, like for your packed lunches and that kind of stuff, if you need them. But if you want sweets on a Saturday morning at the clubhouse, that's because you want them. If you haven't bothered to bring them from home, then you will buy those, like that's your responsibility. And so we've agreed that we will cover their needs still. They don't have to pay for that yet. I guess at some stage we'll move towards, like, if they need something like a new coat, we might do a clothing allowance or something where we will cover like the cost of something, but if they want a fancier one, they need to contribute towards it and that sort of stuff. But yeah, so if they want, they've got a Nintendo Switch, if they want a Nintendo Switch game, then they save up to buy it. And they're both quite good about that, actually. They're both, so I remember they got a Nintendo Switch. This is sort of I don't know if I should tell this story, but they got a Nintendo Switch between them as a present. And the following birthday, we travel quite a lot because my family don't live nearby, so we're often in the car for quite a while, and sometimes that can be a bit tricky with one Switch between two. It's quite difficult to manage sometimes, so they decided that they wanted to get a second one so that they'd have one each. And their birthdays are April and May, and they saved up the money from both birthdays. So my older son had to wait a month between his birthday and my younger son's birthday before they had enough money to buy the Switch. But then we happened to see it on offer a week before my younger son's birthday with like a particular bundle with a game that they wanted. And so I said, right, well, I will buy it, but when you get the money on your birthday, you have to give it me back. And to his credit, my older son was like, but we don't have enough money to get it yet, mummy. We don't have enough money. And I said, well, it's okay, because you've got half the money. And you know that Will's going to get some more of the money for his birthday. And then, you know, you can pay me back when Will gets paid. And he was like really worried that he wouldn't have enough money to pay for it. And like, I was going to charge him interest, lending him the money for a week.
I think that teaches them like two good money habits. So the first one there is helping them to understand that if you do pay for something on credit, that it ultimately has to be paid back. And then second of all, working together as a team to sort of achieve a goal. So like when going forward, if they're, you know, living with a partner or having, you know, those close money relationships with people, that actually, if you work together and talk about money, you can achieve these dreams and goals together. So I think that's two good life lessons learned. And
like that is.
Yeah, it is. I think you're doing pretty well, love. So do they learn about money at school? Is this sort of conversations they have at school, or is this more something that you and Paul have tended to focus on at home and as a family?
If I tell you that I learnt the other day that financial education went on the national curriculum in 2014, I think that probably tells you the conversations that they have at school about it. I think the financial education at school is probably slightly older, so is aimed at kids probably at secondary school. Mine are still at infants and juniors at the moment, but for me, the extent that they've had education at school has been from a maths perspective, and probably the same maths education that you and I had when we were younger, which was Bob has 50p, he buys a 35p apple in the shop, how much change does he get? It's not really about financial education, it's just about solving maths problems in a different way. So no, I don't think they really talk about it at school. I think it's probably starting to come in a little bit for the older one, but mostly I think it's at secondary school that they do that, which for me I think is too late. You know, by the time they're 8, money habits are already set in place. Like, I think it's really important that from a young age they're educated about money and how to manage it. And it doesn't have to be in a complicated way. It doesn't have to be in an overt way either. Just do it, you know, like I say, we talked about football transfers and that kind of thing, and helping with maths in that way and money in that way, and then just starting to drip feed in those kind of needs and wants conversations, like when you're looking at things in the toy shop, or oh, I want this and I want this. Okay, well, do you need either of those things? I'm not saying you can't have them if you don't need them, but do you need them?
Thinking about it a little bit more,
and just thinking about it a little bit more like that.
I think that's really important. It is just about making them understand that money doesn't grow on trees. All of these things, they cost money, and ultimately you do have to decide what is a need and what is a want. And yes, you can have everything, but you might need to make some sacrifices along the way in order to get there. So I think for anyone listening, whether you are a parent, a grandparent, an auntie or an uncle, whoever, if you've got kids in your life, it's never too early, I don't think, to start talking about money. And like Wendy said, I think one of the top tips from today is just to find something that's relative, like football or whatever it is that's relative to your child. That's how to get them introduced to it. Make it fun, make it accessible, and make them understand, that talking about money doesn't have to be this scary taboo subject. And the more we talk about it, especially as young people and as children, the better money habits we learn as we grow up. We have better relationships with people, better financial decisions, and puts, our children in such good stead when it comes to making those money decisions. So thank you very much, Wendy. Thank you everyone for listening to the podcast today, and we will speak to you soon.
Thanks very much, Gabs.